Once a week, an extremely sophisticated and respected group of individuals gathers at a secured, undisclosed location to masticate, as well as debate and celebrate this 8-man fantasy league. This group is comprised of scholars, businessmen, and leaders of state. The results from this meeting of illustrious gentlemen are presented here in the Week 8 edition of Stank's Ranks.
How you doing? I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Stank's Ranks. Right off the top, I want to get to two little pieces of things we need to touch on. Number one, I have not been a good steward of the board's work. They did have a set of ranks last week, and I was going to deliver them. But I was also trying to stir something up because I felt Blake had disrespected the board with some of his comments. And I was trying to convince the board of this. And you know, credit to them. They're better people than we are, and they continue to do their work. But Blake, if you have a problem with the rankings from the board, fucking play better, okay? The second thing, no, that was both. It was I missed the delivery of last week's rankings, and yeah, Blake, the board is better than you and I, and play better if you have a problem with them. You can't question the integrity of these rankings. With that being said, and you know, I quickly looked at Mitchell's before we started recording, and credit to him, he did get a lot of them right. What the fuck are you doing, by the way?
Oh, just waiting for my part.
Well, your part's here. It's you know, Stank's Ranks, part of Trail Trash Talk's Arcade League Fantasy Talk, but we're doing it as its own separate, you know, thing right now for reasons. Anyway, coming in at number 8, moving down also in Stank's Ranks for Week 8, Morgan. Now, Morgan, this isn't just because of your loss. This isn't just because of Dusty's win. This is also because your roster more closely resembles that of an NCAA team than it does a NFL team. It looks like you have the roster of a middle of the pack, lower middle of the pack team in a 16-man fantasy league. Except I think you still have 2, 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends. Like, your roster construction is crazy. It's crazy. Good luck. And dude, I don't know. Yeah, good luck. You still have a shot to not be last, but I mean, you're pretty much made your mind as far as which bracket you're going in. Number 7, Dusty. Dusty got a very badly needed win last week. Showed again that his team is capable of these eruptions. I think week 2 last week he had like 160, 170 points. So his team is capable of it. Hopefully it doesn't happen this week, but Dusty moves up 1 spot. He has better roster construction overall, I would say, than the number 8 spot on this list. But, you know, I feel sometimes like Dusty doesn't look at his roster and his app for weeks at a time. And he's still not last, so credit to Dusty. Coming in at number 6. I think so far this is all the same as Mitchell. Blake. What's your argument now? I mean, it's. I know you don't have the least amount of losses, and we're going to get to that. The problem is your points scored almost count as another loss because you're so far out of. And I'm going to get to that in a second, but you're very thoroughly in the bottom 4. Your roster, I know you were telling me Darnell Mooney is better than I think a couple weeks ago, coming off of a 31-point outing, and then he scored like 6 and 8 points consecutively. Like I said, he's not super consistent. It's just kind of weak. It's kind of weak. And I hope it turns around for you. I don't want you to end up in number 8 because that seemed fucking brutal. But yeah, thoroughly, really dug in here at number 6 is Blake. One spot above him, despite having one fewer victory, is Justin. Not because he's sitting next to me. Not because we have it out for you. But it's because Justin's roster or his construction is not terrible. I mean, he's got some good pieces. Last week, to be fair, he could have had a win last week had he not had 2 injuries, and maybe had he been playing a different team that doesn't have this stroke of luck on their side. And also, you were looking like you were going to be in wide receiver hell until Cup made it look like he was going to come back and be usable, because I think you had lost Evans and...
Yeah, and that was the one of the only other bright points in my receiving core. Running backs are solid. Boys are good, but until Cup came out last night and showed he was going to put some work in, I was fucking worried.
Yeah, so, I had you pegged for wide receiver hell was my notes next to the board's discussion from your overall run in performance up to this point and going forward. This was, of course, a meeting held before last night's football game. So, next we move to number 4. And what's important to note here is there's become a pretty clear line between 4 and 5 as far as what it looks like the end of the season is going to be. I mean, the bottom 4 teams definitely have their struggles. These top 4 teams, some of them had their struggles, but they're pretty obviously on a step up through 8 weeks. And the 4th ranked out of those teams is Mitchell. Mitchell, he's basically praying that the George Pickens thing wasn't a mirage, because he desperately needs him in his lineup and needs him to do well, because Devonta Smith, I think, had a good start to the year and hasn't quite been that since, and he just lost Godwin for the year. So he really needs Pickens to continue his first game with Wilson, have that kind of trajectory. But I know he's going to, bitch and moan because I think he had himself in 3. We're going to get to it. It just comes down to, at this point, it's kind of the record and the still questions of if Mitchell has a in-game injury to one of his key players, can he win? Because that's always a possibility, and that's the good teams, are going to have that in-game injury and still pull out the victory.
I mean, I'm going to give Mitchell some credit here. It's week 8. We've been waiting all season for Derrick Henry to get hurt, and it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I mean, I still, and I may end up being wrong the whole year, but I still think that it is not incredibly likely that a running back on the wrong side of 30, he is, I think, just 30. I don't think he's 31 yet, but that's still the wrong side of 30, to be on pace for his either career high or second highest total carries in a career. That just doesn't seem like a recipe for success. I don't feel like he's going to hold up over 17 games of that type of workload.
He might do it.
Yeah, I mean,
but if he doesn't, there are other things that could go wrong. But I think if Derrick Henry gets hurt, that is just
Henry would,
completely gut Mitchell's
scuttle
team.
his season. Yeah. And again, that's why he's not 3 or maybe even 2, is because there are a lot of questions about how that team is going to depth. Basically, it's depth. Moving on to 3, we have Jordan. Now, Jordan had been, ranked lower in the board's eyes for a good bit of the season, and there are some, other prognosticators that make the argument that Jordan should be lower than 3rd. At some point, fucking things are... I mean, for him to have this record still at this point in the year and to score the amount of points he scored
fine. If he's not winning it, fine. Jordan is not winning. Other teams are losing to him.
You can only play who's in front of you.
That's the end result is the same. Give the dude his props.
If I'm correct, it's hard. So it's hard to bash Jordan. Now that we're 8 weeks in, because I believe each one of us has played the same 7 opponents. Correct?
I believe so. Yes.
So for Jordan to have, what's his record? 5-2. For him to be 5-2, I mean.
Yeah, I think you guys have the same record, or maybe
sir.
one game off.
No, sir. I have the best record in the league. Come on.
All right, then y'all are whatever yours is, Jordan's is 1 off of that.
So yeah, I mean, he keeps winning. That's bottom line. He keeps winning. It's hard to justify lower than 3rd. So yeah. If he loses a game, goes on a 2-game losing streak, that could change drastically, but not probably.
He's not in 3rd because his team is strong.
Well, no,
it's not a bad team, but again, like you said, if we're gonna look at depth,
the thing is he's got Tyreek, who with Tua potentially coming back this week, Tyreek is going to be not only a usable fantasy weapon again, but potentially a top 10 wide receiver that Jordan has not had for the majority of the year.
I was going to say, has Tyreek Hill had...
Well, Tua only played, 1.5 games before, getting bitten by the concussion bug again. So it's,
At some point, on the Tua thing, either there's got to be, irreparable damage, or he's got to become immune, or, at this point. How many Sorry. Tua, love you, man. Not trying to say that your brain is jello. It probably is, though.
And, the other thing that was brought up at the board meeting, the Chiefs were floated when talking about Jordan, because like the Chiefs season so far, he's not performed exceedingly well. He's looked downright shitty in some of these games, and yet he's pulled out the victory. Now, they're undefeated and he's not. That's obviously the difference, but still, he's playing shitty football and winning. But ultimately, he's still winning. Coming in at number 2, and these are pretty obvious once we get to 2 and 1, is Brian. Doesn't have the same, wait, maybe they're the same record. Do you have the records written down anywhere? I should have written all this down ahead of time.
I don't have the records. I've got standings, matchups, projections for wins. I don't have...
Stanton homered. Yankees are up. Okay.
Heck yeah. Is that bad for the Red Sox?
It's the World Series. The Red Sox have been home for a little while now. It's the Yankees and the Dodgers.
Okay. I don't care.
So Jordan is 5-2. Brian is 4-3. Brian is ahead of Jordan because Brian has the lead in points through 8 weeks, and he is also number 1 in his division. So at this point, he's a lock. I mean, Blake is 1 game off of him, but as mentioned earlier, when you consider points, it's really 2 games off of him. And Brian has a strong team. Maybe a bit of mismanagement here and there, I don't know, but he has a strong team. And number 1 is pretty obvious. It's your 6-1 team that's yet to have a healthy roster. And I don't know if I've had a fucking roster make it through the entire game with everyone healthy either, But it's still winning, and it's your host, your favorite, Stank. And, it's pretty much Stank's ranks for weeks 8. Any objections? Any comments? Thoughts?
Not really. I pretty much agree with all you said. Ignore this dead air, guys. It's been a long day. I mean, yeah, I agree with everything. The only thing off from the ESPN rankings, actually, I think, is me and Blake's spot, which is swapped because ESPN is dumb, as I've been saying for multiple seasons now. And they don't take into account the sort of factors and variables that we here at Trailer Trash Talk Fantasy Football do. And that's why we're better.
Who do you think is going to have a bigger issue with this? Blake being ranked below you, or Mitchell being ranked below Jordan?
I don't know who's going to be madder, but I guarantee you that
Be careful.
I don't know who'll be madder, but I guarantee you Blake whines louder about it.
Maybe so. I don't know.
Like 7 years of experience playing in this league tells me that'll be the case.
Yeah, that's not nice. Anyway, all right. Well, I think that's it for Stank's Ranks Week 8. Leave a comment if you disagree. Otherwise, we hope you will check out our Week 8 preview video, which should be up later tonight as well. Until then, I hope you enjoyed. Have a great night and suck my dick.
Have a good weekend, Sam.
Darnold.